thorns, after the beating, after the scourging, he is brought back before Pilate. Now, clearly, a person treated like this is not going to be living very long. You really need to carry out a death sentence. It's kind of going to happen. The infection that is going to set in within a week is going to be terminal. I mean, at this time in history, you don't survive this. So it really isn't necessary to go further. So Pilate figures he's done. I mean, I'm done here. I mean, he's thinking, obviously, this is God. After seeing this is such a horrible sight. I mean, I'm sure that Pilate was convinced that he's finished with this. But no, they wanted to make it. They hated him. They hated him. Okay? They wanted him dead. And so Pilate comes up with this idea, you know what, it's Passover here, and I have this custom, I can release one patient, release one prisoner, okay, and I have a choice, I can release Jesus, or I'll bring Jesus out, and Barabbas, who's a murderer. And I'm sure he expected them to choose to release Jesus. Well, the religious leaders got the crowd stirred up, and when he brought Jesus out and gave them a choice between Jesus or Barabbas, the crowd selected Barabbas, as you know. And Pilate goes, well, what am I supposed to do with Jesus, the king here, And they responded, crucify him. And so Pilate washed his hands of the affair, and Jesus was led off to be crucified. Now, the first part of this process is where he was forced to carry a crosspiece called a patibulum up the Via Dolorosa. Now, the Via Dolorosa wasn't a very steep road in Israel, or in Jerusalem, but it wasn't a very long road, but it was very, very steep. And Matthew, Mark, and Luke report that Jesus carried his own cross. But John says that Simon of Cyrene carried the cross. And so church tradition says that Jesus started out carrying the cross, but fell several times on the way up. And then that's why they conscripted Simon to then pick up the cross and finish the trip for him. Mm-hmm. Now, when we look at the back of the man in the shroud fleshing, we find in the area of the shoulder blades that you see these blood wounds from the labrum, but then as you get into the shoulder area, notice that the blood markings become more confluent, as though the back becomes more hamburgery, okay, because as though something that, like sandpaper, has rubbed the flesh raw. What could rub the flesh raw in the area of the shoulder blades? The idea is that if he carried that patibulum up the Via Dolorosa, those things weighed like 100 pounds. All right? And so you can imagine that would do some significant damage to flesh that is already distraught in terms of its integrity. So here we see evidence of carrying such a crosspiece on the back of the man in the shroud. And we look at the shroud man's knees, we do find some blood wounds and some excoriations down here, which would be consistent with possibly falling several times, or at least once on the way up the